Hi everyone, welcome to the month of June, and I hope that you are all feeling really expansive on your life path as you're moving through, at least here in the United States, the summer months. So I have avoided doing this video for a while, but feels like it's finally time to kind of put this out there for those of you who may be going through something similar. So disclaimer before we start that in this video we might be talking about things that could trigger you, might cause emotional release, and if you're uncomfortable with kind of frank discussion about dealing with physical abuse and healing from that, then this may not be the video that you want to watch, because I'm going to be talking about various ways of healing from physical abuse. So I'm speaking to this personally as I have been a victim of physical abuse in childhood and also in my most previous relationship as well. And so a lot of my own healing work over the year of 2019 and the end of 2018 had to do a lot with looking at this wound and these wounds, and also looking at various ways of kind of unpacking the layers and healing from them. And I think what I'd really like to address in this video is the ways that we continue to abuse ourselves moving outside of physically abusive relationships, and how we can start to offer ourselves integration for wounds and understanding, so that we can stop continuing the abuse even after we leave an abusive relationship. So for many of us, we have a clear understanding that physical abuse is not okay, especially for those of us who follow spiritual paths and who work as healers like myself, as you well know. And yet we can end up in codependent relationships where emotional or physical abuse, or the threat of physical abuse, is something that we deal with on the regular, honestly, or may come up from time to time. It is never okay to deal with physical abuse, whether you are on the receiving end of that or the giving end of that, or a mixture of both. Always, I would recommend for you to remove yourself from the physically abusive situation immediately. However, for many of us, it's a journey to finding our strength to get there, especially if we were raised in situations where there was a degree of emotional, physical, or sexual, or spiritual abuse going on for us. And so untangling the layers as to why we choose to stay in unhealthy situations is a large part of our work. And once we find the strength to leave, we begin a journey of untangling a lot of those layers and pieces, and kind of reclaiming ourselves, putting ourselves back together, and moving forward. And I would offer to you that however long it takes you to leave, or if you find that you've gone back and need to leave again, it is important to not be hard on yourself for that, but to still encourage yourself to make a healthier choice. Someone who chooses physical abuse as the way that they express their own emotions is not in a healthy space to be able to, in my opinion, be in partnership. And so removing yourself from that type of situation is the healthiest thing you can do, not only for yourself, but for your partner as well. And you might really have a lot of love for your partner outside of when and how the abuse takes place. You may even, like me, have an understanding of your partner's wounds from childhood, but it doesn't excuse that type of behavior. And oftentimes, if we choose to stay, we're only, actually pretty much I would say every time, if we choose to stay, we're really only perpetuating unhealthy, codependent, abusive behavior. And so leaving allows for there to be a break, a disconnect from entangled energies, and a reclaiming of our own energy, and allowing the other person to have their own journey in their healing process. So basically, what I've been telling you over the last few minutes is that typically you cannot stay in an abusive relationship and expect it to change. And that can be very, very difficult. And I know for myself, upon leaving that type of relationship, I was expecting to feel really empowered and super clear about, my direction moving forward. And I found instead that I absolutely fell apart. My life seemed to fall apart, and it was incredibly painful and intense. And things from my own childhood that I thought I had done a lot of healing work around came up to be healed. And so you'll find upon leaving that type of situation that it brings up a lot of wounds. And so don't expect to immediately feel empowered. There'll be moments of great empowerment, and there will be very dark moments too that feel quite painful. So it's important to honor for yourself that once you kind of break the chains of an abusive situation or relationship, there's a huge amount of pain that rises to the surface that's exposed. And so here's the thing about pain, and I've talked a lot about that in my blogs over the year of 2019, throughout the months of January, February, and March especially. The pain is not forever, and if we can stay present and feel it and move through it, there's a large amount of healing and understanding and awareness on the other side. So the pain that you are feeling is not a sign that you should go back, or you should have understood something, or that you're never going to get to a better place. It's just rising to the surface to be acknowledged, to allow itself to have a voice now that you're out of a situation in which you've been in survival mode, which even if abuse has only happened once, I can guarantee you, as someone who's lived through this, you are in survival mode after that happens, and every step you take is all about that. So it's very important to give yourself time on that journey so that you can experience the pain and release it, and so that you can shift out of trauma brain and survival mode. It takes a long time to shift out of survival brain and trauma mode. Trauma brain and survival mode, excuse me. I'm still working with that, and we will, for those of us who've experienced this, have this come up and rise to the surface time and again on our path. It's not something that you can put in a box and put away and say, I'm over and done with it and I don't have to deal with it anymore. However, it's also not a debilitating wound. That means that we'll never be safe or sane or whole or able to experience love or safety in relationship again. It's most certainly not the case. We will experience those wonderful things again, and we will find a sense of empowerment. And I can tell you 6 months out, for me, there is a deep sense of empowerment that I'm stepping into, and a reawakening and understanding of myself that I am so thankful for, that I never would have experienced if I had chosen to stay in a situation that was unhealthy and unsafe for me. The piece that I want to speak to in this video is how we continue to abuse ourselves, and kind of releasing and letting go of that. And it's important to acknowledge that when you've been in that trauma brain survival mode space, just because you move yourself out of it, there's still a time period where you have to unplug from that energy, disentangle from a codependent relationship, and really reclaim yourself. And so again, things can feel really difficult and confusing and scary and very deeply sad and painful. And we often will get into a place where in our minds, even though we've disconnected from an emotionally and or physically abusive situation, we will still continue that really negative self-talk that we were dealing with, whether that was coming strictly from us or also from our partner or significant other or family member that we were living with. That type of thing can keep replaying in our minds, and we can kind of create self-fulfilling prophecies in our lives that keep us stuck in that type of energy. How do we step out of that? That's what I want to talk about in this video. How we step out of it is, number one, through the acknowledgement of it, bringing awareness to these cycles that we're staying in our minds, and that we're possibly acting out in our physical realm as well. Acknowledgement of that is essential, And then looking at the areas where it's playing out is also a part of this healing process for us. So looking at where we're playing those things out, and then not forcing ourselves into anything, really taking it slow, I have found to be key. Taking it slow with, okay, I have this awareness of where I'm playing this out. I can see where I keep, you know, as a dear friend of mine would say, skull fucking myself about this. And I keep playing out this experience over and over and over again, even though I've left the situation. So that means that there's a part of us, there's a wounding inside of us that's looking for acknowledgement. And I found for myself personally that typically shows up as like the little girl, the young child, where this type of abusive situation was a normal thing growing up, and so she had to deal with it the best way that she could. And so that's the child within, or children within, because there are multiple, that I choose to spend time talking to and nurturing when I'm doing shadow work or self-work. It's essential to connect with that, I would offer to you. And so get in touch with the part of yourself where this wounding really stems from. And for me, that meant going back to childhood and situations with my family and seeing where this type of behavior was accepted, not dealt with, and I had to actually survive that. It's also going to be very important as you are acknowledging that you're loving with yourself about the ways in which you might be acting out, and then to gently choose to make healthier choices for yourself moving forward. Being really hard on yourself for acting out in certain ways is not going to be helpful in moving forward. Instead, bringing awareness to where you've chosen to act a certain way, and then offering yourself understanding and healing moving forward, and making different choices becomes essential. This is where counseling and therapy, or working with another healer, making really healthy choices for yourself so that you can kind of unpack all the layers that are around this, makes a huge difference. And I would really encourage you to reach out to others, to have conversations with people you trust, to not keep everything inside, but to allow yourself to process. It's a really important part of healing. And we cannot do it all on our own, even if you're a healer and have found yourself in this situation. And honestly, a lot of healers do, because we tend to see the soul and the beautiful thing in someone, and we tend to kind of ignore the unhealthy ways in which they might choose to live their life. So taking care of ourselves becomes top priority as part of this healing journey, asking for help where we need it, having conversations with people, choosing to make healthy choices for ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to work on our self-worth is essential. I know for myself, ending this last relationship, this most previous relationship, I had such a low sense of self-worth and felt like literally, honestly, a piece of shit and absolutely worthless. And so I had to work really hard with deity on my spiritual path, with various healers that I was working with, to come back to a sense of myself as a person who's worthy and as a person who's deserving of self-love first and foremost, let alone love in a relationship with a partner. So as you move through this, it's going to require a level of accountability, but it's healthy accountability. It's loving and understanding accountability. It's not harsh, and things like journaling and processing become essential in doing this. Also understanding your energy levels and being very gentle with that is important as well. It's something that I really struggle with. But offering yourself the food that you need when you need it, the sleep that you need when you need it, taking time alone when you need it, that it's safe to be alone. That can feel really frightening, especially if you've been in a codependent partnership or relationship with a family member. To kind of reclaim your own space is really, really important as well. I would offer personally for me, talking to deity, working with deity, and connecting with deity has been essential for me. So if you find that that's something that speaks to you on your spiritual path, I would really, really encourage you to go to those, step into those go-tos, trust what you're hearing from spirit, from your spirit tribe, from the energies that work with you, as an understanding to the lesson for this, to how you got into the situation you did, which has roots in childhood, and for those of us who believe in past lives, but also how you can start to shift your own self stories so that you don't end up in a similar situation in the future is important also. let's see if there's anything else that I feel called to share in this video. This video is really difficult for me to make, and but I do feel like it's important. It's also kind of an understanding and a full circle of my own journey over the last year as well, and understanding my own healing process too. And so offering that to others, you know, allows for further healing to happen for me too. So it's very essential to be gentle with yourself, to be understanding of yourself, and to not be harsh and unloving. The other thing that's important is to start looking at where you can set healthy boundaries moving forward. For those of us who find ourselves in situations like this, we typically were taught that boundaries were not healthy, that personal boundaries were selfish and unloving of us. And so it's really about going way back and really focusing on setting healthy boundaries now. So you can choose to go way back, or you can just choose from here on forward to recalibrate your boundaries and to honor those healthy boundaries for yourself as well, so that you can make choices that serve you instead of deplete and drain you and put yourself in unhealthy situations. If you have healthy boundaries, you're not going to be putting yourself in situations where your intuition and your gut is telling you something and you choose not to listen to it because that's what you were trained to do from childhood. That's something that's like a neural pathway, and you end up moving in the direction of something that's not healthy or not safe for you because it feels natural, it feels like home, whereas something that would be healthy feels unnatural and scary. So do you see how you have to work with discomfort as part of the healing process? Understanding that there are areas of discomfort that are actually show us we're moving in a healthy direction because something that was unhealthy felt really comfortable and really safe because that's what we were used to from childhood. So there are all these pieces here that we're unpacking and looking at, and it's all right for you to take that journey however you need to, and to call upon support where you need to, but also be okay with saying no to support when it doesn't feel appropriate for you from certain people or from a certain mindset or certain belief system. This is about you figuring out who you are again and reclaiming yourself. So, and once again, I cannot emphasize enough reaching out for support, therapy, you know, seeing a counselor, seeing healers, making healthy choices for yourself, choosing to really look at those mental cycles that we get stuck in so that you can start to break them up and shift them and allow for there to be peace in the mind so that the war stops in the mind. The war zone is released in the mind is very, very important. And of course, tarot is a beautiful tool to use as we work through the healing process. And I always bring it back to that in that channel. Always bring it back to that in my life because this channel is about that. It's about tarot and witchcraft and healing work and energy work and psychic medium abilities and how one moves through the world with those gifts. Another piece that might really come up for you as part of the healing process is if someone has expressed to you or multiple people in your path that you are too much and that you have to be controlled in order to live a healthy life. This is not true. If you have been told that, part of reclaiming your power will be understanding that you are not too much and reclaiming all aspects of yourself and an understanding that you can take care of yourself in a perfectly healthy way without another person telling you what to do and how to do it. And I cannot emphasize that enough. So if you are going through this on your own, if you're trying to make choices for yourself at any level or experience of an abusive relationship or situation in your life, whether that's happening at home or in the workplace or wherever in a friendship environment, this video can serve as your wake-up call if you would like it to. If you're in an abusive situation, leave the abusive situation. Make healthier choices for you. Be very, very gentle and loving with yourself as you move through the healing process, which will not be over in a month or two, or even a year or two. Be understanding of yourself. Also understand that you cannot change someone. Only that person can change what is not healthy or in alignment about themselves. You cannot change another person, even if you see their beauty as well as their pain. So you might feel after you watch this, if you've been through this, that you're kind of called to do some journaling. You might need to sit and have an emotional release. that's okay. Give yourself the time and space to do that. Please know that, as always, I am with you, and I share my journey in the hopes that it allows someone else to feel heard and understood and seen on their own, and that they can reclaim their own power. That is always my intention in all of my work. So I am sending you all much love and many blessings. Take care.